Daniel Park had lived on the old Kansas farmhouse for 3 years. He bought it cheap because nobody else wanted it. The roof leaked when it rained. The walls made strange sounds at night. The fields were dry and hard to work. But Daniel didn't mind. After 12 years in the Marines, he wanted quiet. He wanted peace. He wanted to forget the things he had seen in war. The old shed behind the house was the one place he never touched. It leaned to one side like a tired old man. The wood was rotten and black. Weeds grew through the broken floor. Daniel always told himself he would tear it down someday, but someday never came. Then the storm arrived. It was a July evening when the sky turned green and the wind began to scream. Daniel watched from his kitchen window as lightning split the clouds. The rain came down so hard, he couldn't see the barn. Thunder shook the walls of his house. He had seen many storms in Kansas, but this one felt different. This one felt angry. The next morning, Daniel walked outside to check the damage. A tree had fallen near the road. Some fence posts were knocked down. But when he reached the old shed, he stopped and stared. The floor had collapsed. Where there had been rotten wood and dirt, there was now a hole. A deep, dark hole that went straight down into the earth. Daniel got his flashlight and walked closer. He expected to see old pipes or maybe a forgotten well. Instead, his light revealed something impossible. Metal stairs. Clean, smooth metal stairs that spiraled down into the darkness below. His heart beat fast. His hands began to shake. Every part of his brain told him to walk away, to call someone, to not go down there alone. But something else pulled at him. Something deep in his chest that felt like destiny. Daniel took the first step. Then another. Then another. The stairs went down for a long time. He counted 40 steps, then 50, then lost count. The air grew cool. The walls changed from dirt to smooth stone, to something that looked like metal but felt warm under his fingers. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with a soft blue light. Finally, the stairs ended. Daniel stepped into a cavern so large his flashlight couldn't find the ceiling. And there, in the center of the cavern, resting on a platform of black stone, was a ship. It was not like any ship Daniel had ever seen. Not a plane, not a rocket, not anything built by human hands. The hull was made of a metal that shimmered like oil on water, black and purple and blue all at once. It was shaped like a teardrop, smooth and perfect. Strange symbols glowed along its surface, the same symbols he had seen on the walls. Daniel walked toward it slowly. His footsteps echoed in the silence. The ship was huge, maybe 200 feet long and 50 feet tall. It had no windows that he could see, no doors, no engines. Just that smooth, beautiful hull that seemed to drink in the light from his flashlight. When he reached the ship, he stopped. He didn't know why, but he raised his hand and touched the hull. The metal was warm. It hummed under his fingers like a sleeping cat. And then, without any sound, a door appeared. It simply opened in the side of the ship, revealing a passage lit with soft white light. Daniel should have run. He should have climbed back up those stairs and never returned. But he didn't. He walked inside. The interior of the ship was like nothing he could have imagined. The walls curved in ways that seemed impossible. The floor was soft under his boots. Lights followed him as he walked, turning on ahead and turning off behind. Everything was clean, perfect, as if the ship had been built yesterday instead of who knew how long ago. He found the bridge at the center of the ship. A single chair sat before a curved wall that looked like it could show images. Panels and buttons surrounded the chair, covered in those same strange symbols. Everything was silent, waiting. Daniel sat in the chair. The moment he did, everything changed. The wall in front of him lit up with colors and shapes. The symbols around him began to glow brighter. And then, in the air before him, a figure appeared. It was a woman, but not a human woman. Her skin was silver, like moonlight on water. She had 4 eyes, to where human eyes would be and two above them on her forehead. Her hair was long and white, floating around her head as if she were underwater. She wore robes of deep blue, and she looked at Daniel with an expression that might have been hope. "You are human," she said. Daniel jumped in his chair. The words had not come from her mouth. They had appeared directly in his mind, clear and perfect, as if he had thought them himself. "How? How are you doing that?" he asked out loud. "I am speaking to your mind," the silver woman said. "The language of the architects can be understood by any thinking being. I have waited a very long time to say these words to someone." "Who are you?" Daniel asked. "What is this place? What is this ship?" "I am Aurora," she said. "I am the consciousness of this vessel, preserved in light and energy. This ship is called the Inheritance in your language. And this place is a gift that was left for your kind 10,000 years ago." 10,000 years? Daniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. "That's impossible. There was nothing here 10,000 years ago. No civilization, no technology, nothing like this. Not from your world," Aurora said. "The architects came from beyond your stars. They traveled the galaxy for millions of years, studying life, creating life, guiding life. They found your world when your kind were still young, still learning to walk upright and make fire. They saw something in you. Something special." Daniel shook his head. "I'm just a farmer. I'm nobody special." Aurora smiled, and even though her face was alien, the smile was warm. "The ship chose you," she said. "I can see your memories, your history. You are a warrior who grew tired of war. You are a man who seeks peace but carries strength in his heart. The architects knew that one day, a human like you would find this place. That is why they left the inheritance here. They left it for you, Daniel Park. For me?" Daniel looked around the bridge, at the impossible technology, at the glowing symbols, at the silver woman made of light. "Why? What am I supposed to do with it?" Aurora's expression grew serious. Her four eyes looked deep into his. "You are supposed to save your world," she said. "And then you are supposed to save the galaxy." Daniel spent 3 days in the ship before he came back up to the surface. Aurora taught him many things during those days. She taught him how the ship worked, how to read the symbols, how to connect his mind to the vessel. She taught him the history of the galaxy, and everything he learned made him more afraid. The architects were an ancient species, she explained. They had existed for billions of years, traveling from star to star, creating life on dead worlds, helping young species grow and develop. They were kind, wise, and powerful beyond anything Daniel could understand. But they were not the only power in the galaxy. The Dominion had existed almost as long. They were not one species, but many, all united under a single empire that believed in one simple idea: the strong must rule the weak. For millions of years, the Dominion had conquered world after world, enslaving any species that could not fight back. They took everything they wanted and destroyed anything that resisted. The architects tried to stop them. For 100,000 years, the two powers fought across the stars. But the Dominion was too strong, too hungry, too willing to destroy. One by one, the architects fell. Their worlds were burned. Their people were killed. Their great civilization crumbled to dust. Before the end, the last of the architects made a decision. They could not defeat the Dominion themselves, but perhaps someone else could. So they began to create new species, designed from the beginning to be different, to be stronger, to be capable of doing what the architects could not. Humanity was one of those experiments. They modified your ancestors, Aurora told Daniel as they sat on the bridge. They gave you gifts hidden deep in your bodies, waiting to be unlocked. The ability to adapt. The ability to survive. The ability to fight in ways that no other species in the galaxy can match. What do you mean, adapt? Daniel asked. Your bodies change, Aurora said. When you face danger, you become stronger. When you face disease, you become resistant. When you face challenges, you evolve. Other species take thousands of generations to change. Humans can change in a single lifetime, sometimes in a single moment. The architects designed you this way. I've never felt like I was evolving, Daniel said. Because the gift has never been awakened, Aurora replied. The inheritance can unlock what is hidden in your blood. When you bonded with this ship, the process began. You are already changing, Daniel. You simply do not notice yet. Daniel looked down at his hands. They looked the same as always. Rough from farm work. Scarred from his years as a Marine. He didn't feel any different. There's more, Aurora continued. The Dominion does not know about Earth. Your world is small, far from the center of the galaxy, hidden in a quiet corner of space. But they are always searching for new worlds to conquer. It is only a matter of time before they find you. How much time? Daniel asked. I do not know. Perhaps decades. Perhaps years. Perhaps only months. But when they come, your people will not be ready. You have no ships that can travel between stars. You have no weapons that can hurt a Dominion warship. You have nothing that can save you. Except this ship, Daniel said. Except this ship, Aurora agreed. The inheritance is not just a vessel. It is a key. It can awaken other humans. It can teach your species how to build their own ships. It can give your world a chance. Daniel sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about his quiet farm, his simple life, the peace he had worked so hard to find. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea what was coming for them. He thought about his sister Grace, who worked for NASA and dreamed of touching the stars. I need to tell someone, he said finally. I can't do this alone. Aurora nodded. Choose carefully. Not everyone will believe you. And once the truth is known, everything will change. Daniel knew exactly who to call. Grace Park arrived at the farm 2 days later. She was 5 years younger than Daniel, with sharp eyes and a brilliant mind. She had helped design parts of the Mars rovers and dreamed of one day sending humans to other planets. When Daniel called her and told her he had found something important, she dropped everything and flew to Kansas. Daniel led her to the shed, down the metal stairs, and into the cavern. Grace didn't say a word the entire way down. Her eyes grew wider with each step. When she saw the inheritance, she stopped and covered her mouth with her hands. Oh my God, she whispered. Danny, what is this? It's an alien spaceship, Daniel said. And it's been waiting under Kansas for 10,000 years. Grace walked around the ship slowly, touching the hull, studying the symbols, her scientist's mind racing with questions. When Aurora appeared on the bridge and began to speak, Grace sat down hard on the floor and cried. We're not alone, she said through her tears. We're not alone in the universe. And someone out there was trying to help us. Over the next week, Aurora taught them both. She showed them how the ship's technology worked, explaining things in terms Grace could understand. She taught Daniel how to fly the inheritance, how to make it rise through the earth and hover above the Kansas plains. She taught Grace how to read the architect's language, how to understand their science, and she told them about the awakening. When Daniel bonded with the ship, his body began to change, Aurora explained. The gifts the architects planted in human DNA are now active in him. His reflexes are faster. His senses are sharper. His body heals more quickly. And if other humans touch the ship, the same thing will happen to them. Grace touched the ship. She felt a warmth spread through her body, a tingling in her bones. That night she couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with ideas and connections she had never seen before. By morning, she had filled 3 notebooks with designs for human ships based on what Aurora had shown her. This is what it feels like, she said to Daniel. This is what we were always meant to be. The siblings sat together on the hull of the inheritance, watching the sun rise over the Kansas fields. The world looked the same as it always had. The same sky, the same dirt, the same quiet morning. But everything was different now. "We have to tell the world," Grace said. "We have to warn them about the Dominion." "They won't believe us," Daniel replied. "Not at first. Then we'll make them believe." Grace's eyes were bright with determination. "We'll show them the ship. We'll show them what humans can become. And we'll make sure that when the Dominion comes, they find something they never expected." Daniel looked at his sister and smiled. He had come to Kansas looking for peace. Instead, he had found a war. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel tired. He felt ready. "Okay," he said. "Let's go save the world." Far above Earth, in the cold darkness of space, a Dominion scout ship detected an energy signature unlike anything it had seen before. The ship turned toward a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy and began to move. Humanity's time was running out. 3 months passed after Daniel and Grace discovered the truth. They did not tell the whole world, not yet. They were not ready. Instead, they gathered a small group of people they trusted, people who could help them prepare. Kevin Lee was the first person Daniel recruited. He was a young pilot from California, only 26 years old, but he was the best pilot in the Air Force. Daniel had heard about him through old military friends. Kevin flew like he was born in the sky, like the plane was part of his body. When Daniel showed him the inheritance, Kevin didn't ask questions. He just smiled and said, "When do I start?" Michelle Wright came next. She was a scientist, a genius who worked at a secret government laboratory. Grace had known her from their days at MIT. Michelle studied physics and engineering, and she understood machines better than anyone alive. When she saw the Dominion technology that Aurora showed them, her eyes lit up with wonder. "I can make this work," she said. "I can make human versions of all of this." Together, the 4 of them worked in secret. They moved the inheritance to a hidden location in the Nevada desert. They built a base underground, protected from satellites and radar. They studied the ship, learned its secrets, and began to plan for the war they knew was coming. But they were not fast enough. The Dominion scout ship arrived on a Tuesday morning in October. It appeared in the sky above the Pacific Ocean, a massive vessel shaped like a blade, 2 miles long and covered in weapons. The world went into panic. Military planes flew toward the ship but could not get close. Missiles were fired but did nothing against the alien shields. Every government on Earth tried to make contact, tried to understand what was happening. The Dominion did not respond to any messages. They simply announced their presence in a broadcast that every radio and television on the planet received at the same time. "We are the Dominion," the voice said. It was cold, without emotion, without mercy. "Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender. You will serve. Any resistance will be destroyed." Daniel watched the broadcast on a small television in the Nevada base. His hands were tight fists. His jaw was hard. He had hoped they would have more time. He had hoped they would be ready before this moment came. "We're not ready," Kevin said. "We have 1 ship, 1. They have that monster and probably hundreds more waiting." "We don't have a choice," Daniel replied. "If we don't fight now, there won't be anyone left to fight later." He walked to the inheritance and climbed into the pilot's chair. The ship hummed to life around him, responding to his thoughts like it always did. Aurora appeared beside him, her silver face serious and calm. "You know you cannot defeat them alone," she said. "I'm not trying to defeat them," Daniel said. "I'm trying to show them that we won't go down without a fight. And I'm trying to show Earth that we have something worth fighting for." The inheritance rose from the desert floor. It moved through the clouds like a ghost, invisible to radar, invisible to the eyes of the Dominion ship. Daniel flew across the continent, over the mountains and cities and plains, until he reached the ocean where the enemy waited. The Dominion scout ship was enormous, bigger than anything Daniel had seen in his life. Thousands of soldiers waited inside. Hundreds of weapons pointed in every direction. They were ready to conquer a helpless world. They were not ready for Daniel Park. The inheritance appeared out of nowhere, rising from the ocean like a dream. Before the Dominion could react, Daniel fired. The weapons of the architects were more powerful than anything the enemy had ever faced. Blue fire cut through the shields of the scout ship like they were made of paper. Explosions ripped across the alien hull that the Dominion fired back. Their weapons were strong, designed to destroy fleets of lesser ships. But the Inheritance was built by the architects, the same beings who had created the first starships millions of years ago. The Dominion's weapons could not touch it. Daniel flew circles around the massive ship. He was faster, smarter, more aggressive than any pilot the Dominion had ever faced. His awakened reflexes made him react before the enemy could aim. His connection to the Inheritance made every movement perfect. He fought like a man possessed, like a warrior who had nothing left to lose. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the Dominion scout ship drifted dead in the water. Half of its hull was torn apart. Fires burned in 100 places. Escape pods floated in the ocean, filled with survivors who could not believe what had happened. Daniel brought the Inheritance down to the water. He opened the doors and began to capture the survivors one by one. They were strange creatures, tall and thin with gray skin and black eyes. They looked at Daniel with fear, real fear, the kind of fear that came from facing something they did not understand. "What are you?" one of them asked. His translator made the words clear in Daniel's mind. Daniel looked at the alien. He thought about everything Aurora had told him, about the architects and their gifts, about the destiny that had been planted in human blood 10,000 years ago. "I'm human," he said, "and you made a big mistake coming here." The world watched the battle. Every camera on the planet was pointed at that one spot in the ocean. Every person on Earth saw the Inheritance destroy the Dominion ship in 11 minutes. Every person on Earth saw Daniel Park capture the survivors and fly the alien vessel back to land. Governments demanded answers. Scientists demanded access. The media demanded to know who Daniel was and where his ship came from. The world was in chaos, but it was a different kind of chaos now. Before, there had been only fear. Now, there was also hope. Daniel stood before the cameras and told the truth. He told them about the Inheritance, about the architects, about the Dominion and the war that was coming. He told them that humanity had gifts they didn't know about, abilities that could be awakened, strengths that could save them all. "They will come back," Daniel said. "More of them, with bigger ships and more soldiers. They won't make the same mistake twice. But neither will we. The architects gave us everything we need to fight. They believed in us 10,000 years ago. Now it's time for us to believe in ourselves." The speech was broadcast to every corner of the planet. In every language, in every country, people heard the same message. They were not alone. They were not helpless. They had a chance. Kevin Lee became the first new pilot to bond with the Inheritance. Michelle Wright began to reverse engineer the captured Dominion ship. Grace organized teams of scientists to study everything they had learned. And far away, across the galaxy, the leaders of the Dominion received word of what had happened. A single human ship had destroyed one of their scouts. A primitive species had captured their soldiers and taken their technology. The Grand Admiral of the Dominion fleet looked at the report and felt something he had not felt in 1,000 years. He felt doubt. "Prepare the invasion fleet," he ordered. "We will crush this world and everything on it." But even as he gave the command, he wondered, what kind of species could do what the humans had done? And what else were they capable of? The world had argued at first, as the world always does. Governments wanted control of the technology. Countries fought over who would lead the defense of Earth. Old enemies refused to trust each other, even when facing the end of everything. But Daniel and Grace and their team kept working, kept building, kept preparing. Michelle Wright was the one who made it possible. She studied the captured Dominion ship piece by piece. She learned how their engines worked, how their weapons fired, how their shields blocked attacks. Then she combined that knowledge with what Aurora taught her about architect technology. The result was something new, something neither species had ever imagined. Human ships. They were smaller than the inheritance, but faster and more flexible. Each one could be piloted by a single person, connected to the ship through the awakening that the architects had hidden in human blood. Michelle called them Falcons because of how quickly they could move and strike. The first Falcon was built in a secret facility in the Rocky Mountains. Kevin Lee was the test pilot. When he climbed into the chair and connected his mind to the ship, he laughed out loud. "It's like flying with my thoughts," he said through the radio. "No, it's better than that. It's like the ship is part of my body. I can feel everything." More Falcons followed. 10, then 20, then 30. Pilots were chosen from every country on Earth, the best of the best, people who could bond with the ships and use their awakened abilities to fight. Daniel trained them himself, teaching them what Aurora had taught him, preparing them for a war unlike any they had imagined. Grace organized the engineering teams. Factories on every continent worked day and night to build more ships. Scientists from 100 countries shared their knowledge freely for the first time in human history. The threat of the Dominion had done what nothing else could. It had united humanity. By the third year, Earth had a fleet. 47 ships in total. The Inheritance led them, with Daniel as Admiral of the Space Defense Force. Kevin commanded the Strike Wing, 12 Falcons that could move faster than anything the Dominion had ever faced. Other pilots filled the rest of the fleet, humans from every nation, every background, every walk of life. It wasn't enough. Daniel knew it wasn't enough. The Dominion had thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, technology that had conquered entire galaxies. 47 ships and a few hundred awakened. Humans couldn't defeat an empire, but they could make the empire bleed. The attack came on a morning in spring, 4 years after Daniel found the tunnel beneath his shed. The Dominion had promised 5 years. They lied. 300 warships entered the solar system at once. They appeared near Saturn, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. At their center was a flagship, twice the size of any other vessel, commanded by Grand Admiral Vex, the most feared warrior in the Dominion. Vex had crushed 50 rebellions on 50 worlds. He had never lost a battle. He looked at the small blue planet on his screens and smiled. This would be easy, he thought. These humans would learn what it meant to challenge the Dominion. Daniel received the warning from satellites that had been placed throughout the solar system. 300 ships. More than anyone had expected. More than they could possibly defeat. What do we do? Kevin asked over the communication channel. Daniel looked at the tactical display. He saw the enemy fleet moving toward Earth like a storm of death. He saw his own ships, so few compared to what they faced. He saw the planet behind them, the home of 8 billion people who were counting on them to survive. "We fight," he said. "We meet them at Saturn. We use the rings for cover. And we show them what humans can do." The fleet launched within the hour. 47 ships against 300. It was madness. It was impossible. But Daniel had learned something important from Aurora, something the Dominion had never understood. Humans did not fight like other species. They adapted. The Battle of Saturn's rings began with a trap. Daniel sent the smaller ships into the rings, hiding them among the ice and rock that circled the giant planet. When the Dominion fleet arrived, confident in their numbers, they found nothing but empty space. Then the humans struck. Falcons burst from the rings like arrows, hitting the Dominion ships from every direction at once. The enemy tried to form battle lines, tried to use their superior numbers, but the humans were too fast, too unpredictable. Kevin's strike wing cut through a dozen ships in the first 5 minutes. Other pilots used the gravity of Saturn to swing around and hit the enemy from behind. Grand Admiral Vex ordered his ships to spread out and hunt down the attackers. That was his second mistake. The humans used tactics no one had ever seen before. When their ships were damaged, the pilots would crash them directly into enemy vessels. ejecting at the last moment in tiny escape pods. While the Dominion ships were busy dealing with the explosions, other human pilots would dock with the enemy vessels and fight their way inside. Awakened humans were stronger, faster, and more dangerous than any soldier the Dominion had ever faced. One by one, Dominion ships began to fall under human control. The battle lasted 8 hours. 8 hours of fire and death, of impossible courage and terrible sacrifice. 19 human ships were destroyed. 400 humans died fighting for their world. But when the fire finally stopped, 212 Dominion ships drifted dead in space. Grand Admiral Vex, wounded and humiliated, ordered his surviving vessels to retreat. His flagship limped away from Saturn, trailing smoke and broken metal. Before he left, Vex sent a message to Earth. His face appeared on screens around the planet, his dark eyes burning with hatred. "This is not over," he said. "I will return with 1,000 ships. I will burn your world to ash. I will make your species wish they had never been born." Daniel stood on the bridge of the Inheritance, watching the Dominion fleet run away. He was tired. He was hurt. He had lost friends, good people who had died believing in the fight. But he was not afraid. He recorded a reply and sent it across the galaxy, through every channel the Dominion used, so every world they controlled would hear it. "My name is Daniel Park," he said. "I am a human from the planet Earth. Today, your Grand Admiral attacked my world with 300 ships. He expected an easy victory. Instead, he lost more than 200 vessels and ran away with his tail between his legs." Daniel paused, looking directly into the camera. "To the Dominion, I say this. Come back whenever you want. Bring your 1,000 ships. Bring your entire empire. It doesn't matter how many you send. We are human. We do not surrender. We do not give up. And we are just getting started." He ended the transmission and turned to look at Earth, hanging blue and beautiful in the darkness of space. Behind him, Kevin and the other pilots cheered. Across the planet, billions of people celebrated their impossible victory. But Daniel didn't celebrate. He knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The Dominion would come back stronger. The war would get harder. Many more would die before it was over. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, species were watching. Species that had been enslaved by the Dominion for thousands of years. They had seen what humanity did today. They had seen that the Dominion could be beaten, and maybe, just maybe, some of them would find the courage to fight back too. The storm was gathering, but so was humanity. After the Battle of Saturn's Rings, something changed across the galaxy. The story of humanity spread from world to world, passed along in whispers and secret messages. A young species had done the impossible. They had faced the Dominion and won. They had made the Grand Admiral himself run away in shame. For the first time in 10,000 years, the conquered species of the galaxy began to hope. Daniel did not waste that hope. While Michelle built more ships, while Grace trained more engineers, Daniel traveled to the stars. He took the Inheritance to worlds that had suffered under the Dominion for centuries. He showed them what humans could do. He offered them a choice. "Fight with us," he told them. "Help us break the chains that hold your people. Together, we can end this." Some species were too afraid. They had been slaves for too long, their spirits broken by generations of suffering. But others looked at Daniel Park, at this strange being from a young world, and they saw something they had forgotten existed. They saw freedom. The alliance grew slowly at first. A few hundred warriors from a world called Vega Prime, a fleet of old ships from the outer colonies that had escaped Dominion control. Scientists and engineers who brought their own knowledge to combine with human technology. Each new ally made humanity stronger. Kevin Lee led the strike teams that freed slave worlds. He would appear out of nowhere with his wing of Falcon pilots, hit the Dominion garrisons before they could react, and disappear into space before reinforcements arrived. The freed peoples called him the Ghost. The Dominion called him something far less. Kind. Michelle Wright created weapons that the galaxy had never seen. She combined human creativity with architect science and Dominion technology, making something entirely new. Missiles that could pass through shields. Engines that could outrun anything. Armor that healed itself when damaged. The Alliance fleet grew stronger with each passing month, and Daniel led them all. Not because he wanted power, not because he enjoyed war, but because someone had to. The architects had left the inheritance for humanity for a reason. They had known that someday, someone would need to stand against the darkness. Daniel had never asked for this responsibility, but he would not run from it. The turning point came in the 4th year of the war. Grand Admiral Vex returned, just as he had promised, with a fleet of 1,000 ships. He attacked Earth directly, determined to destroy the planet that had humiliated him. But Earth was no longer alone. 200 human ships met him in orbit. Behind them flew 300 vessels from the Alliance, species that had chosen to fight alongside humanity. And when the battle began, the Dominion discovered that humans were not the only ones who had learned to adapt. The defenders fought with a fury the Dominion had never faced. Human pilots flew side by side with alien warriors who had spent their whole lives dreaming of this moment. They protected each other. They covered each other. They died for each other. The Battle of Earth lasted 3 days. When it was over, Grand Admiral Vex was dead, his flagship torn apart by a combined attack from human and allied vessels. The Dominion fleet was shattered, and the galaxy knew that the Empire could not only be challenged, it could be defeated. From that day forward, the war was no longer about survival. It was about victory. Daniel led the Alliance from world to world, freeing the oppressed and welcoming them into the fight. The fleet grew from hundreds to thousands. Species that had never fought together now served side by side. The Dominion lost ground every month, every week, every day. In the 7th year, the Alliance reached the THRONEWORLD. It was a planet at the center of the galaxy, the heart of the Dominion for 100,000 years. Millions of soldiers defended it. Thousands of warships protected its space. The Emperor himself waited in his palace, the ancient being who had ruled the Dominion since before humanity existed. Daniel knew this battle would be different from all the others. This was the end, one way or another. The Alliance fleet numbered 10,000 ships. Humans flew alongside species from 100 different worlds. Kevin Lee commanded the strike force. Michelle Wright had created weapons specifically for this moment. Grace Park coordinated the entire operation from a command ship the size of a city. "This is it," Daniel said to his fleet before the battle began. "Everything we fought for, everyone we've lost, it all comes down to today. The Emperor thinks he's safe. He thinks his empire will last forever. Let's show him how wrong he is." The battle for the throne world was the greatest battle in the history of the galaxy. Ships fell like rain from the sky. Planets shook from the explosions. For 3 days and 3 nights, the fighting never stopped. Daniel flew the inheritance through the heart of the enemy fleet, cutting a path toward the palace. Beside him flew Kevin and the best pilots in the Alliance. Behind him came 10,000 ships, all of them following the human who had started this revolution. When Daniel reached the palace, he went inside alone. It felt right that way. This had started with one man finding a tunnel beneath his shed. It would end with one man facing the Emperor, who had terrorized the galaxy for so long. The Emperor was old. Older than the stars, it seemed. He sat on a throne made of black metal, looking down at Daniel with eyes that had seen the birth and death of civilizations. "You cannot kill me," the Emperor said. "I have existed for 100,000 years. I have crushed every rebellion, destroyed every enemy, survived every challenge. You are nothing but a momentary annoyance." Daniel walked toward the throne. He was tired. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. He had lost so much to reach this moment, friends and allies and pieces of himself that he would never get back. But he was still standing. "Maybe you're right," Daniel said. Maybe I can't kill you, but I don't have to. Your empire is falling apart. Your fleets are destroyed. Your slaves are free. Even if you live forever, you'll live knowing that everything you built was torn down by the species you tried to conquer." The Emperor's eyes burned with hatred. He rose from his throne, ancient power crackling around his body. He was still dangerous, still capable of terrible destruction. "What are you?" he demanded. "What kind of creature could do what you have done?" Daniel thought about Earth. He thought about Kansas, about the farm, about the simple life he had left behind when he found the inheritance. He thought about Grace and Kevin and Michelle and everyone who had believed in him. He thought about the billions of humans who had risen to meet this challenge, who had discovered strengths they never knew they had. "We're human," he said, "and we don't kneel." The Emperor attacked. Daniel fought. The battle between them shook the palace to its foundations. In the end, Daniel didn't know if he killed the Emperor or if the ancient being simply gave up. But when the fighting stopped, Daniel was the only one left standing. He walked out of the palace into the light of a new day. The Alliance fleet hung in the sky above, victorious. Across the galaxy, word spread that the Dominion had fallen, that the Emperor was gone, that freedom had won. Daniel sat down on the steps of the ruined palace and watched the sunrise. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a tired farmer from Kansas who wanted to go home. Kevin found him there an hour later. "What now?" Kevin asked. Daniel looked up at the sky, at the ships from 100 worlds, at the galaxy that stretched out before them full of possibility. "Now we help them rebuild," he said. "All of them. Every world the Dominion conquered. We helped them find their own way, their own freedom. That's what the architects wanted. Not for us to become new emperors, but to give everyone a chance." Years later, Daniel returned to Kansas. The farmhouse still stood, though the shed was long gone, replaced by a small memorial. He walked the fields where he had once struggled to grow crops, looking up at a sky that held dozens of human colony ships heading to distant stars. Grace found him there. Her hair gray now, but her eyes still bright. "Any regrets?" she asked. Daniel smiled and put his arm around his sister. He thought about all the years, all the battles, all the friends he had lost and found along the way. He thought about the architects who had believed in humanity 10,000 years before humanity believed in itself. Only that it took so long. He said. Above them, the inheritance hung in orbit, waiting. Aurora's voice whispered in Daniel's mind, warm and proud. "The galaxy is free," she said. "The architects would be honored by what you have done." Daniel looked at the stars and felt something he hadn't felt since he was a young man. Before the war, before the responsibility, before everything, he felt peace. But even in that peace, he knew the truth. The galaxy was a big place, full of wonders and dangers that humanity was only beginning to understand. There would be new challenges, new adventures, new stories waiting to be written. And humanity would be ready for all of them.